Have you ever felt frustrated trying to speak English? You study hard, memorize words, and understand grammar, but when it's time to speak, your mind goes blank. You hesitate, search for the right words, and feel stuck. What if I told you there's a fun and simple way to improve your English speaking skills? A method that doesn't require memorizing endless vocabulary lists or struggling with complicated grammar rules. Imagine improving your speaking skills just by reading simple stories. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, in this video, we're going to follow a character's journey to fluency, and you'll see how reading stories helped her become a more confident English speaker. Are you ready to unlock the secret to fluent English? Let's dive in. Sarah had always wanted to speak English fluently. She worked hard, studying grammar, memorizing vocabulary, and practicing listening. But every time she tried to speak, her mind went blank. No matter how much she practiced, the words just wouldn't come out as naturally as she wanted them to. She had a problem. She could understand English perfectly, but speaking it was another story. One day, Sarah was chatting with her teacher, Mrs. Johnson, and she shared her frustrations. "I feel stuck," Sarah confessed. "I know the words, but when I try to speak, I just freeze." Mrs. Johnson smiled gently and said, "Sarah, I think you might be missing something important. Have you tried reading simple English stories aloud?" "Reading?" Sarah asked, confused. "How could that help with speaking?" "Trust me," Mrs. Johnson replied. "Reading simple stories helps your brain become more familiar with how English works. It gives you sentences you can use in real life, and it helps you practice speaking them over and over." At first, Sarah wasn't sure, but she decided to give it a try. She found a simple story titled "Tom Goes to the Market." The sentences were short and easy. Tom goes to the market, he buys vegetables, he meets his friend. These were simple, everyday phrases that Sarah knew she could use in her own life. Sarah sat down and began to read the story aloud. "Tom goes to the market," she said slowly. She repeated the sentence again. "Tom goes to the market." The more she said it, the more it felt natural. Next she read, "He buys vegetables," and repeated it several times. "He buys vegetables." Sarah imagined herself at the market, picking out tomatoes and carrots. She felt the words coming to life as if she were part of the story. As Sarah continued to read and repeat the sentences, she noticed something strange, but exciting. The words started to feel less like foreign language and more like things she could say in real conversations. Sarah could already picture herself at a grocery store, saying, "I need to buy vegetables," or "How much are the tomatoes?" It was as if she was learning how to use the words, not just memorize them. The more Sarah read, the more she began to realize how powerful repetition was. Each time she read the story aloud, she repeated the sentences. Tom goes to the market. He buys vegetables. He meets his friend. Repetition helped her practice pronunciation and fluency. The phrases were becoming familiar and comfortable. One day, Sarah went to the store to buy some bread. Without thinking, she walked up to the counter and said, "I need to buy some bread." It was the same sentence she had practiced in her story, and it came out smoothly. She didn't hesitate. She didn't search for the right words. The story had helped her feel more confident speaking English. The next day, Sarah read another story titled A Day at the Park. This time, the sentences were a little more complex. I walk to the park. I sit on the bench. I see my friend. As she read, Sarah again repeated the sentences aloud. I walk to the park. I sit on the bench. She even imagined walking to the park herself, greeting her friend. As Sarah practiced, she realized that the phrases weren't just useful for stories. They were phrases she could use every day. When she was at the park with her friends, she could say, I walk to the park, or let's sit on the bench. These stories gave her the phrases she needed to speak English in real-life situations. Weeks went by, and Sarah kept reading simple stories. She read stories about different topics, going to the doctor, traveling, and even making new friends. Every time, she repeated the key phrases aloud. Slowly, Sarah noticed something amazing. She was speaking more confidently. She was no longer afraid to make mistakes. The phrases she had read in the stories were no longer just words in her head. They had become part of her everyday speech. One day, Sarah was at a cafe with a friend. When it was time to order, she walked up to the counter and confidently said, I'll have a large coffee, please. The sentence came out naturally, without hesitation. She couldn't believe how easy it was. The stories had worked. Sarah's journey shows how powerful simple stories can be for improving your speaking skills. By reading and repeating key phrases from these stories, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're learning how to use those words in real situations. Repetition is key. The more you practice, the more natural your speaking will become. Ready to take the next step in your learning journey? Start today by reading a simple story and practicing the phrases you learn. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tips and stories to help you improve your English. Share this video with a friend who's also looking to improve their English. And don't forget to subscribe for more helpful content. Happy learning!